things that I start off with the class is that when students are logging into the classroom, and they'll see me, but then I'm also at Triton when I'm doing the class. So in the beginning, this is not what I wanted to show, but in celebration of Women's Month, and then also, like I said, in celebration of Pi, I usually put up a quote at the beginning of the class. It is my way of having my students get engaged and talk into classroom, and it's step away from the math a little bit, but talk about something else. And it's always a math-related quote in this case. And it is the last class, one student said, where did you find that wonderful woman? And I'm like, what one? And I'm like, oh, you mean the person who's doing the quote? And I showed them and it was Darcy Marcy, sorry, who was also an actress, but she became a mathematician. And I said, I have her book at home, and I talk about it. And I said, but at no means I'm not asking you to go out to get the book, but I just want you to know that other areas that math is applied, but there are other people who, in different specters of education or acting, social science, anything, they revert to using mathematic phrases. So it's to get them to talk a little bit about the quote itself, but not to be so hooked up on it's going to be a math class uh, for the next 50 minutes or 45 minutes or even an hour in this case. But again, like I said, it's just to share with them some of the things that with all of you. And I see my co-host is here. Welcome, Tina. Tina and I, for those who don't know me, my name is Tuan Dean. I am a full-time faculty member at Triton College. I'm also in the College Readiness Department along with the Mathematics Department. And I am teaching both credit and non-credit. And I am thrilled to be here with my co-host Tina, who will introduce herself and to talk about some of the strategies that we talk about in engaging our students.
Hi, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
My name is Tina Bavone, and I am the learning specialist and a part of the Title V grant. Do you guys hear like a
An echo.
echo?
Echo?
A little bit.
Yes, I
A
am.
little bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Um,
Why is
I don't know
that?
if you want to leave, but I know we don't have much time. You can log out. Log out, leave, and come back.
I'm good with the echo.
Okay, yeah, I even heard it for Shelly too, so maybe it's not me. Anyways, so I teach in the English and the humanities. So I've been teaching online, blended, face-to-face, and then now I have also had the experience of doing the emergency remote learning as well. So lots of challenges in all three contexts to engage students in the classroom.
So I will get started for all of you. Tina and I decided we're going to talk about two each, some of the things that we do. One, I'm going to focus on communication and also looking and using Blackboard. So beginning and starting off with communication, like I said, in the class, my students will start off with a quote in the class to get them to talk, and I'm loading up my presentation for all of you. To get them to talk about mathematics, but also to get them to chat. And one of the strategies I've learned to get my students to talk even more is that I fooled them, I tricked them a little bit, if you want to be that trickster. I told them that when they log into the class, it's part of the attendance requirement that they have to do a posting, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And within the duration of the class, I do what is called the 3-2-1 question. So the first question, after doing within a presentation, they get 3 minutes to answer it. The second one, they get 2 minutes to answer it. And then the last one, they get 1 minute. And yes, within those presentations of the questions, they do get points for it. And as I was saying before, giving a quote, and I did find it for all of you. So giving a quote, for example, one of the quotes in this case from the last class was dealing with math and pi. So I had a little history about that. And within the question that they had to do some Googling research, is to find out if this mathematician, in this case, I'm not really good at saying his name. I don't want to. I already butchered it one time, but to say in this case a little bit about him and the chat area. And again, one of the other signs that they had is this one, which was just to get them to talk about a little bit, to get them to just have communication of talking about not just mathematics, but also in regards to the question that they'll see in the posting as well. But communication, you may have to find different methods to do that. And like I said, I do it with slides. And here's another one in this case for Women's Month. I use different quotes from different individuals, even if they're not so famous or not well known or even celebrities, just to give them an idea that there are other people in the fields that they can talk about and have a have a general conversation. And for me, I found that more engaging for the students because they're not realizing that there's so many people, especially in the field of mathematics, that there's so many people who have sayings about math in this case. And I even do little clip arts as well too. So here's another example of a clip art that I had them to talk about for just 1 minute in the breakout area. And breakout rooms for all of you using in Blackboard are wonderful. And it gives them an opportunity to not only talk to themselves, and you can skip around to breakout rooms, but it gives them an opportunity to exchange different concepts. And like I said, it was a great conversation when you come back and have one person represent each group to talk about, especially this picture for all of you about the math food fight. So a lot of my students kept saying, "Where there is no food, what are they throwing?" I was like, "Pie," and then one person would comment on it and etc. But in that, like I said, it was to give them, to break away from, talking about math all day, but just to have some fun with it. And like I said, I tricked them a little bit in regards to the communication of communicating in the chat area of good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, because they have to do a closing, opening, and then they also have to do the 3-1-2 that we do during the class itself. And then also they have to do a closing at the end of the class. And I just thought that was, which I tried out after the first summer of doing online remote learning. I think it worked, and it just gets students to talk a little bit more. So utilizing both tools of tricking a little bit and communicating online, and then also utilizing Blackboard with the breakout rooms, it doesn't make it, what I'm trying to say, it doesn't make the class less engaging. I think it makes the class more engaging, and it breaks up students just sitting in front of their computer listening to us for the duration of the class. But those are the two techniques. Like I said, communicating, using a lot of communication with your students. And I tell my students that I'm probably like an unorthodox professor that they'll have at Triton, that you're going to get a lot of emails from me in the in Blackboard. There's going to be a lot of notes. There's a lot of talking within the course, and then also hopefully a lot of talking outside the course as well too. And I tell them I'm not expecting them to be Einsteins or Newtons after the class is over, but just hopefully you have and learn a little bit, not only from me, but also from your classmates as well too. All right, Tina, I'm turning off my presentation, my slide. Like I said, that's what I do for all of you in the sense of what Tina and I were breaking up. And we want to just have a general conversation with all of you as well. Okay, Tina.
Yes. So I utilize the breakout rooms to get students in contact with each other and able to talk, because they're very they kind of clam up when everyone's together, especially in the emergency remote setting. And so some things that I have them do when they're in breakout rooms, and I will share my screen. It's very distracting to have an echo. I will use Padlet. So I am posting the link to one of the Padlets that I've done recently into the chat. So while they're discussing the questions that are assigned, I'll have them post their answers underneath each question. And as you can kind of see, I'm able to go in and comment on their comments, which I found really helpful because if you've ever used breakout rooms, it is a lot to kind of go between the different groups, and you don't always hit all of them, and then you end up not getting to talk to everybody. So I thought this was a good way for me to interact with students while they're in their breakout rooms and hopefully push their thinking a little bit further. And then they also have this link after class to remind them of the discussion. So then when remember on Tuesday when we talked about, they have this to go back to and remind themselves. Also, too, I will use a lot of Google Slides or Google Docs. So, for example, oh, sorry, like a million.
No, Shelly had a question. Yes,
Shelly had a question. Yeah. Oh, she's up first.
Can you guys hear me? Oh,
yes.
Coco's still going. No, I was just
You were seeing if there was an echo. Oh, I'm not sure if that was her question.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So after working in a group, they'll have to present on something to the class. So I have them put together. This one was just on something simple like sentences and clauses, and each person had to go through and answer a question. And then that kind of gets it away from me lecturing about sentences and clauses, right? Because like, who wants to listen to the instructor talk about what sentences are? So then it gets them answering the question, and obviously then I'm there to jump in and continue the lesson. So those are two sort of tech pieces that I'll use when in class when I have them working in groups. And one thing that I've talked with colleagues about and I've read articles about is, in this setting, in the classroom, I'll often use groups that are mixed. Like I'll do, you'll be in a different group with different students, different weeks, but it is helpful to break out groups and have them have like their own team. So it's the same, they're working with the same students each week. That increases them getting to know each other, getting comfortable with each other, building camaraderie, and almost like a team. Like they have this team goal. When you're in a team and you accomplish a goal, you feel really good about it. So that is one piece of advice that I would give in terms of when you're working inside of the breakout rooms. Has there been does anyone want to share their experiences with using breakout rooms or any of the techniques that we've kind of discussed? Just to open the floor a little bit.
And again, for all of you in this casual conversation, what we're saying, Tina and I are saying, was what we tried in our classes, and it may not always work. We may use different things. I know, for example, I have, like I said, I tried different techniques. Like I said, I fooled my students and I tricked them into communicating. In the beginning, I sent them an email stating that they have to do that as part of their attendance requirement. And again, as Tina and I were discussing this, I say I kind of tricked them into doing it, but it was the way to get them more engaged in the course, but not knowing that it's not part of the requirement. Let me give you an example. In my syllabus, it says it's part of the attendance requirement for students to log in and do a greeting and a closing, and they have to participate at least once within the 3-2-1 session. They don't have to do all three of them, but they have to participate at least once in one of the 3-2-1 sessions. And again, it's just I've learned, especially from the summer, then from the fall, and this spring, I get more students as they learn this is what I'm going to be doing in my course, but I get them to talk a little bit more among themselves, but also with me as well. And I tell my students that I don't want this course, this remote class, to be me sitting there talking with you or to you, and especially like you have students who maybe log into your classes, for all of you who may not even use their cameras or have a picture, like Jennifer has a picture of herself, and you really don't know who you're speaking to. You're speaking to a blank image, so you're not sure if they're there or not. So that was just one way for me to try to get them engaged. And I think, like Tina was saying before, I've attended and read a lot of articles and attended with some webinars and saying how to do these different practices that we do now in this remote learning atmosphere, not only get your students engaged, but also to keep them from the fatigue of looking and learning in a remote class, because they're continuously, for right now, until we do have on-site classes or in-person classes, it's just, sitting in front of their computer the entire time. And we have a generation of students that may enjoy that, but we also may have a generation of students who may not enjoy it and who are not used to it as well too. And you try to find different ways to have the classroom exciting but educational at the same time, but throw in a little humor or fun here and there, so it just does become boring. Because one of my students shared with me that one of us, and I'm not sure who the person is at Triton, when the students log onto their class, they read to them, and they just found that they found it boring. And one student, he said, I have to admit, I log on to class, and he goes and watch TV until the class is over.
Yeah, that's a that's a problem for sure, because I don't know whether they're watching Monday Night Football or are they engaged. But what I try to do is have a conversational tone and start off with how you feel, or talk about the crazy weather, or what the heck is going on, or what's happening with the Bulls, or just something, and get people to talk about something else for a while. And then you talk to them about solving problems. I mean, in IT, it's always, especially if you're on the tech support team, there's always something wrong. You should have, and you start going, okay, here's something that's occurred. Here's how we handled it, back in the 80s and 90s. But here are the way things are now. We've got a whole different set of tools. And I want to talk to you about them. But you have to have breaks and talk amongst the group and get people. I think what happens is they kind of go into a trance if you don't stop and have discussions and just different stuff to do. Could be a game, it could be anything, but you can't just go on for 2-3 hours and think that they're just going to be engaged, because like I said, they might be watching Monday Night Football.
You're absolutely right, John. One of the things that I received from actually several of my students, they joked with me in the email saying, why are you always asking us after I'm doing a problem? And then I'll say, okay, well, did anyone have any questions? And I don't hear anything from anyone. I say, okay, come from the kitchen. We've already had our sandwiches, but bring me one too. So I will make jokes about that. And several of my students send me email, why are you always asking about the kitchen? And then especially in my evening class after 7 o'clock, I know these individuals who are maybe getting off of work, it's been a long day, now you're sitting in front of your webcam or your computer and learning math for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes or 2 hours and a half. And I'm always breaking up with some type of little humor to bring them back from what they're doing. And yeah, that's where my students they laughed at me and they said, no, you keep doing that. Ask us about the kitchen, or I'll be a theater major even though I wasn't, and I'll say, oh, you know what, John had a question, and there's no John in the class, so I'll use an ambiguous name that's not part of the course, and I will be that person to answer the question. And I hear my students blow up the chat just laughing at me the entire time because it's like, who's John? Or my favorite student, Buquisha or Gutiera. And my next one in this case was Ricatado, who is a student in the class. That's not even a student. It's a name I made up. And it's just to get them to talk a little bit more, especially when they tease me and saying, who's Ricatado? The next student for next week is Silverado, so we'll see how that goes too. But you're right. It's to give them um, a little humor in the class, but also to see if they're still engaged. Yes, Nancy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm cracking jokes and becoming a comedian all the time with my students. And sometimes I'll just say, all right, camera's on. Let me see what you feel like. You know, that's it. Everybody's camera on right now. You know, it's because it's like I said, I'm sick and tired of looking at these black boxes. You know, get those cameras on. And I've also, Tuan, I've used the quotes. Quotes are very effective, but I haven't used it the way you did. So I'm going to try your technique. And the other question I had about the 3-2-1, are those your questions that are geared to math? They're geared to what you're teaching. Is that what it is?
That is correct. So, for
Okay.
example, I'll use a common topic. So if we were talking about fractions, adding or subtracting the fractions, I'll do a short presentation and then say, okay, let me see who's still out there in virtual land. It is now time for our 3, 2, 1 first question, and then I'll post it as like, let me show you. So I'll post it just like I would do with the quote and put it on the screen. I say, okay, the clock is starting. We have 3 minutes to answer the question. And I'll do, you're right. So I'm in the background saying, oh, Silverado, did you get it? I don't think so. I don't know how to do that. Well, you can break it down. I don't know. So it's that comedy, that humor in the sense of they're doing it. And then, oh, I'm back. 3 minutes is over. Please post your answers to the chat area so that I can. And it's not to, for all of you, it's only to the individual chat to myself. And then I'll continue on with the lesson. And during that, I will go back again. Oh, here we are again. It is now for that 3, 2. So I'll highlight the 2 or the 3 or the 1, indicating that's the one that I'm going to be looking at. Somewhat like that. But then, like I said, I'll post up the presentation because I've already worked it out in the sense of what questions I'm going to ask them. But sometimes I've had, Nancy, where the 3, 2, 1 actually was combined together in the middle of the lecture, and I emphasize the 3, 2, 1 again. But I say, okay, but today, but you're doing so well, everyone. I see you all blowing up the chats and talking about, is he doing it yet? Did he start? And so they're not walking away from their computers because now they're on edge. And I would say, okay, well, today's 3, 2, 1 is going to be about 10 extra points where you get to use, not towards the final, but you get to use wherever you need to see. And then I also have, and what I've done before, which Jennifer has seen it or actually heard this in my class, I actually have a secretary in each class, the secretary in this case, who is chosen randomly, or sometimes they'll volunteer. And the secretary may give a recap, or for my classes, sometimes the secretary in this case would say, well, Professor, today is extra credit day or extra credit points. This is what we decided outside the classroom that you should do because they've been talking to each other, and it really does work. And Jennifer, in this case, who's sitting here, have seen it in my class where the secretary will give like a summary. If I had a guest to come in the classroom, the secretary is charged of, he or she, and again, it's not a paid position like I tell, but it's a way of having the class engaged, but the person represents the class in the conversation. So it's not so many voices thrown out there, especially when we have a guest in the classroom. And Jennifer can
I'll jump in,
speak a little.
Tuan.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely got to witness that, and that was just really well run. And a few of his classes, not just one, and differently by different students who were engaging in it, and it just really kind of gave the class some flavor and helped their personalities come out. It was great. I have a 2:30 appointment, but I agree with Nancy and John and Tuan and Tina. I do a lot with games. You made the joke that the professor was reading something aloud. Like, it's a participation. If I have something I want read, I'll post it as a file, zoom it up, and then I said extra credit, and they read it aloud and they engage. A lot with Kahoot, but sometimes I can't get Kahoot to work on Collaborate, and that's very frustrating. But I try to do cute, stuff. But they do, kind of like Nancy said, they think we're Bugs Bunny, like da 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 da, and I'm not Bugs. I'm not Bugs at all. But this was great. It's great to just collaborate with colleagues. I do have a 2:30 appointment, and they get very mad at me if I'm not on time.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jen. Jennifer, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure seeing you as well.
Thank you. And always, you just have such useful, whether you're talking about anxieties of students or all the wonderful workshops you've done. We just love you, Tuan. Thank you. And Tina, too.
Thank you, Tuan
Well,
and Tina.
thank you, all of you. I know
Thank
that
you.
it was
It's good to
only
hear